Welcome to Mad Props. I am your host, Chris Schnabel, and today we have an amazing, great, fantastic episode previewing the Major League Baseball season, this upcoming 2025 season. If you are new to the program, please like and subscribe this podcast wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube, Schnabel Studios YouTube, or the new Mad Props Pod YouTube. Please subscribe, please like, please follow, all that stuff. It helps us a lot when we are building and growing as a podcast itself. If you're new to the podcast, we don't usually do stuff like this. We do a lot of interviews with different people and stuff like that. But I do like to throw these solo type episodes in or theme type episodes, as you call them, in every now and again. Now, I don't want to call it a solo episode because I do have two friends of the show joining. Dave Puglisi, news reporter, big baseball guy. He's joined me on previous podcasts before, including way back in the beginning. He'll be joining us to break down some of this baseball season. And Jhon Guarin will be joining us as well. This is his first appearance on the pod, but he is a writer for StadiumRant.com. He does a lot of stuff with the Yankees and baseball as a whole, sports as a whole. Make sure you go check out his stuff, StadiumRant.com, today, and check out some of his articles. Before we get started, this podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. If you are a baseball junkie like me, you like to learn everything you can about the game, the history of the game, the way it was played, the way pitchers have changed, everything you can learn. And the best way to do that is getting a good book. But the problem with that is sometimes you don't have the time to just sit down and read. It's really annoying. It's really frustrating, but we don't all have that time. Well, luckily with Audible.com, you could take that book on the go. Whether you're taking a walk, you're doing some work, cleaning the house, whatever it may be, you just pop in your earphones and you can listen to whatever book comes to mind. They have thousands of books on their app available to listen to right now. You can get a 30-day free trial of Audible by going to audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios to get your 30-day free trial. I know that was a weird sentence, but all you have to know is you get a 30-day free trial. So you can go maybe listen to Bob Feller books, Tom Seaver's book. Maybe you want to learn Moneyball, the real story of Moneyball. You can get any of that stuff right now on audible.com. Head to audibletrial.com/Schnabel Studios to get your 30-day free trial today. This podcast is also brought to you by Schnabel Studios. We have a lot of really good stuff coming up. I don't want to give that too much, but there's a lot of college basketball coming up, and there's going to be a lot of college basketball guests coming up, which is going to be really fun to go over different aspects of college basketball. Someone big from St. John's is coming on. A big basketball podcaster is coming on. Even maybe a former player is coming on. So there's going to be a lot of good basketball stuff coming up for March Madness. So definitely stay tuned. Like I said, subscribe to the Schnabel Studios YouTube channel or subscribe to Mad Props wherever you get your podcast, including now YouTube, youtube.com/Mad Props Pod. Check out schnabelstudios.com to see everything we do, including videos, podcasting, and more. You can get a quote for a video if you're looking for a video, or you can check out other podcasts such as Sketching Up or films that we have done with Schnabel Studios, the production company. I would also love to say this is sponsored by SeatGeek, but they don't seem to want to do it. We tried. They'll just be perfect for them. They must not like us as much. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to go buy something from SeatGeek, you're paying full price. Sorry about that. Before we get started, one thing I was really grateful to do this year is work with a lot of really good athletes, including Aaron Judge. And I have to bring up on this podcast that to this day, that is still the best opportunity I've ever gotten in any form of work in my life. Actually, sitting right here behind me, I think it's kind of cut off in this shot, but sitting right here behind me, and I'll take it out because it's, very delicate, is a ball signed by Aaron Judge himself to Chris. I want to keep this in my shot at all times. This may be the best autograph I've ever gotten in my life, and I have a lot of them. I mean, you could look behind me, some of the most cherished ones. I think the one here is also very cherished, from Darren Nefsey, Scott Koblish. Right here is Dak Prescott. In the other room, we have Zeke Elliott. The cool thing about these autographs, the one that's rolling right now, if you guys can see that in the camera, if you're listening, there's one rolling around right now. That's Taylor Fritz. The coolest thing about the autographs I have and the memorabilia I have with a lot of this stuff is I've worked with a lot of these people. So they're more of like gifts as a thank you rather than something I bought online. Some of them I did like run into people or, whatever it may be. But I just think it's a cool thing that I have this stuff that was kind of given to me because people, were thankful for the opportunities we've had together. Just behind me, if you're watching, I mean, there's a photo that was drawn of me. There's a Scott Koblish drawing of myself and my girlfriend. There's the Darren Nefsey. There's Jason Page. There's a Matt Sheldon. There's a Squirtle from Rachel on Twitch. There's a couple other things around this office as well, the Schnabel Studios office space that are given. So there's not much of a story there. I always got to bring up Aaron Judge when we do a baseball one, though, because it was a great episode. Guys, I'm extremely tired. I had to re-record this, unfortunately, so I really want to just get into it. The first one I had was really good, and this one, I just don't have the energy to continue to do it again. So I just want to get into it and just get going. So we are going to roll the credits, roll the credits, roll the intro. Let's get to baseball. It's time. It's the season. This is part one of a two-parter. So if you're wondering where part two is, it'll be coming soon. This is Mad Props. Okay, fellas, welcome to the big baseball breakdown here on Mad Props. I know people listening usually come to the show for guests, so they're probably a little confused that we do baseball episodes, but we have done these in the past, and we're going to do them in the future, so too bad. You'll have to deal with that, or you can go listen to something else, whatever happens here. We're going to break down a little bit of the Major League Baseball season as it is almost underway. Correct me if I'm wrong, is this the earliest spring training games have started? It's February, and there's already been like three games for each team.
Yeah, probably.
It's definitely the earliest I've ever tuned in for spring training games.
Yeah, for sure. I had it going the first day, watching on the 12th, but yeah, I mean, I think last year the season starting on the 27th, they might have started right around the same time.
Yeah, that's it. I guess because they're moving the years or the start date earlier and earlier each year, so they're going to do things like that. But let's start where the season ended in free agency, and there were some big names that moved in free agency. So we'll go around the horn. Dave, we'll start with you. Some of the biggest free agent names. And the reason we'll start with you is because the biggest one is Juan Soto. You are a Mets fan. Tell us a little about Juan Soto, and tell us what your reaction was when he signed with the Mets and gave up half the Earth's money to get him.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, what he was signed for money-wise was nothing like I ever thought he was ever going to get, because I never thought it was reasonable for anybody to make that kind of money in baseball. I felt...
Because why should anyone make more than Shohei Ohtani, who literally does both sides of the ball?
Exactly. I thought that was the absolute max that anybody would ever make. And the thing is, I also felt like he was on his own planet. Like I thought, early on when people were talking about Juan getting $500 to $600 million, I thought that was crazy. But, in comparison, I was like, yeah, all right, maybe that sounds about right. But for him to get as much money as he did is just astronomically crazy, especially just the year-to-year breakdown. Second, for him to actually go to the Mets was something I was not expecting. I knew the Mets would be players, and at the end of the day, I knew the Mets were going to have the most money, period. And that's just the way that it was going to go. They were going to be able to give the most money, and they were going to be able to outbid anybody at the end of the day. And basically, they were just going to give $1 more than the other guy, right? So if it truly came down to dollars and cents, it would have been the Mets. But I thought for sure there are other teams and other players just like the Yankees who would be involved, who give another equally as good option. And I thought he could have just stayed with the Yankees. He could have gone to the Dodgers. He could have gone to the Blue Jays.
Why not? Join the party.
Yeah, there are other teams that are willing to pay the same amount of money. So it's like, okay, who would have thought that it would actually be the Mets? But when he did choose the Mets, it was crazy. I mean, like I said, first, I was wowed by the money. Second, I was wowed that he chose the Mets. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. It just changes everything about what the Mets are and what they've been since basically 1962, it truly says that this is a new era of New York Mets baseball, and the Mets are now here to be a true perennial power and not just some little brother team in New York that, you know, has an occasional run. Like, they're saying, hey, we're going to be good for a long time, and that's what Juan had said by signing here. So it like his signing meant more to the Mets and Met fans than it actually means to the everyday lineup.
Jayhan's over there laughing because he already knows I'm about to break down exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
So how does it feel giving like almost $800 or $1 billion to a player and still being the third best team in the division?
It's honestly crazy because they don't. I mean, look, he makes the lineup better for sure, but the team overall isn't that much better than they were.
They already
last
lost
year.
2 pitchers.
Yeah, exactly, and
They already lost 2 pitchers.
And that's the thing.
And Clay Holmes is now a starter.
For sure.
Oh, he was a great closer, so he should be
for
a
sure.
great starter.
Well, he added in a changeup. So he's going to be elite now. He's going to be elite. But I mean, look, they're the same team that they were last year. Almost the exact same team. The only difference is they added Juan Soto. The pitchers they lost, they replaced with very similar pitchers. You know, like I mean, gosh, they lost Jose Quintana. So they bring in Frankie Montas. I mean, it's the same. You know, it's the same guy. So
well, then they lost Montas, and they're probably going to bring back Quintana.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know.
So they're just going to replace the guy that replaced him with the guy that replaced him.
And, you know, the things, they signed a lot of depth. I mean, you know, I'm not too concerned. It's so early in the season for some of those things. But it's just, they're the same exact team. And they're not that much better than they were. But I think, you know, Juan coming to the team says that next year they're going to be better. The year after they're going to be better. I mean, they do have young players that are going to step in and be better. And they also have the ability to make some trades and stuff like that. And those are things I was going to break down more when we get to some of the division breakdowns. But I mean, at the end of the day, they're still not the best team in baseball. And they don't have, but they're better than they were before Juan Soto, you know?
That's true. Juan Soto does bring a pretty good bat to the lineup. Let's get the Yankees' perspective. I could give it, but I'm gonna throw it over to my man Jayhan over there because he hasn't even talked to you really. So let's hear a little bit about the Yankees' perspective.
Now knowing that you're a Mets fan, because I just don't have very high hopes for the Mets this year, even with Juan Soto. But in terms of looking at the Yankee perspective on this,
other than the Clay Holmes Cy Young, he does not have high hopes.
I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't disappointed with Juan Soto leaving the Yankees, right? Especially when you look at previous years before Juan Soto, when you talk about who's backing up Aaron Judge, like what's the other impact bat that was supposed to be staying, but now he came at the can with 2 bad elbows.
He got no elbows. He got no elbows.
So now but then
they're very important to your arms too.
When you do see him leave now, but you now see what the Yankees did in terms of kind of at least trying to patch up some of their bad positions from last year. So an outfield spot, first base. I think a lot more people are down on third base more so than I am. Am I concerned about third base? Obviously. I just don't think it's as much of a scare as maybe other people are thinking. But they have patched up a lot of holes that they've had in previous years with Juan Soto leaving. So it's not like they just said, all right, let's just kind of lose the year. Just put a bunch of prospects in and let's see what happens. They did get Bellinger. They got Goldschmidt at first. They now have Jazz back his natural position at second. So I think Juan Soto leaving stinks because the impact bat is no longer there. I think defensively, which we saw in the World Series, was a big question mark. I think defensively they got a lot better, and I think that they're still the top team in the AL. So I think they'll be fine without Juan Soto. Long term, we'll kind of see where it goes. But I think in the next year or two, I think they'll be fine without him.
You wrote about the Yankees' third base options. What do you think they're going to go with? What do you think is the best option for the go with?
I think the best option is to do some sort of platoon over there with Oswaldo Cabrera and probably Peraza. But they're the Yankees, and we know how they treat their veterans, and they're not just going to cut DJ LeMahieu without him trying to get a run. So my fear is that they're just going to give up a lot of run at third base when I don't think he's that good defensively anymore at third base. And I don't think his bat is there anymore as he's gotten older and as he's gotten more injured. So my fear is that they'll go DJ LeMahieu long term. What I hope they do is that they do some sort of platoon with Cabrera and Peraza and move on from DJ, or have DJ be kind of give guys a break at the 3 positions other than the shortstop in the infield. So that's
like when they first brought him in. He was giving everybody a break. He literally played everywhere on the field, on the infield at least, except for catcher. Like, he gave everybody a break. But then they had, that need for somebody to take over third. So he kind of just took over third. And showed in his bat and his injuries. Shouldn't really be doing that, especially at the age he's at. I think the biggest flaw from the Yankees in the offseason was not like even considering a third baseman. Didn't even seem like they considered a single third baseman on the market. And I know like Arenado's older, he's declining. I didn't want Bregman really either. It's not even playing third anymore because Devers refuses to leave that position. But I thought they should have looked into anything. Maybe that's next year. I don't know. And we'll get into it a little more. I do think we're going to see a new third baseman around the trade deadline go to the Yankees. I think they're going to really be looking in because I think some teams are going to really be struggling and they're going to be looking to move out. I heard that someone told me the other day, we were talking about baseball. Now, I live in Dallas, so when we're talking baseball, you get some crazy, crazy things because they don't know how to make trades or signings over here. And I heard somebody saying that they should go after like Kike Hernandez, and I'm like, but they already have LeMahieu there. Like, why would we go after another 35-year-old infielder that has not produced? And Iglesias is brought up, and Dave, you know all about Iglesias. There's no way he's doing that again. In 50 games he hit 335. He's not doing that again.
And you know what's funny about all that? I mean, obviously Met fans want him back, and now Madrigal got hurt. You know, his replacement.
Well, he can't play. Oh my God, if he's not there.
And here's the thing, though, right? Him coming to the Mets in the way that it was, like 2024 as a Met fan was just magical. I mean, the fact that they did what they did, it should have never happened. I mean, the team was literally horrendous and, went on this unreal run. It was magical the entire way. I think the thing is he left as a hero, right? You know, that the classic Batman saying, live long enough to die the villain, right? Because
he rode off on his pit bull.
Exactly. Because if he stuck around any longer, he would be the Jose Iglesias that we know that he is. I mean, he's like a 300 hitter.
Well, that he's become, because he defensively really struggles now. And even there was a reason they signed him to a minor league contract because he was known for bat-to-ball skills, and they just weren't there for the last couple of years. Right. And that's why nobody signed him until that point.
Because I would hate for him to be seen as terrible. And Met fans turn on and be like, this guy's trash. I would actually appreciate that he just rides off. OMG was what it was. It was incredible. Let's keep that as a good memory and not allow it to be washed away by something. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a minor league deal somewhere and get a chance to be on the bench somewhere and fill in where there's an injury. It'll probably happen.
I also wonder if you're the Mets ownership, their staff over there, if you're now with the signing of Juan Soto, do you start to kind of turn the page to now like we're not just a fun story anymore and we don't need to hold on to those fun stories, and we can kind of pivot to now like, hey, we have bigger fish to fry now, like after making it to the NLCS and with what you said, magical run, now you add Juan Soto. Like, all right, let's start to now build where we're not just a one-off and we're able to do this consistently. And
I think you do whatever you can. I mean, I know it was a magic. And I kind of agree. I don't think the Mets will be as good as they were last year because of what you just said. Like, it was a magical run. Like, it kind of happened at the end, the second half of the year. It was almost a little bit out of nowhere. They looked pretty dead in the water. I'm pretty sure the broadcast said that, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is rock bottom. And then they go all the way to the NLCS. That's why I don't think they're going to be as good, but I still think they're going to be playoff contention. Like, I still think they're probably going to be in the 3 teams from the East are going to be in the playoffs, most likely, it seems like. So that's why I also think that. But if you had magic last year, I'm not saying bring back Iglesias to keep that magic, but I keep as much as I can of it until it stops working, because you never know. Sometimes it's just like a one-off. Sometimes that person actually had something left in the tank, and you just kind of left it on the table.
Or like you guys said, right? Like, the magic is now you have Juan Soto. You don't need, theoretically, the magical play. I mean, you always will have to have something, right? You'll need to have your Freddie Freemans hitting a grand slam every single game. You do need to have things like that to win. But at the same time, you also want to have the best players that give you that chance to win, right? So Juan Soto gives you the opportunity to have those magical moments, just like when he sent the Yankees to the World Series with this, incredible 3-run homer. So, you look at stuff like that.
Never heard of it.
Never, right? But moments like that, he obviously can create, where if Jose Iglesias creates it, it's truly out of nowhere. And mostly his magic was because he sang a really good song. But that was really about
on the infield.
That was,
I will say,
when I saw that, I was like, what is going on? Like, this is just so bad.
As a Yankees fan, it honestly was a great moment for me as well, because he did it after beating the Astros. And then right after the game, just grabs a microphone and starts singing his new single on that shortstop. It was like, oh, if you want to ever see the death of the Astros, here it is. It's Jose Iglesias singing "Oh My God" after a walk-off. So speaking of bringing in the best players, the Dodgers brought in just about every other player you could. Some of the players, other than even I'm not even going to name the Japanese players they brought in. They brought in Blake Snell, back Teoscar Hernandez, Tanner Scott, who was probably the best reliever in free agency. They also brought in Kirby Yates, who's pretty good. Michael Conforto they brought in. Giovanni Gallegos they brought in. I mean, they brought in, like I said, every other person. They did lose a couple, Walker Buehler and Jack Flaherty. Walker Buehler has been hurt for a while, but Jack Flaherty was very good for them after the trade. Goes back to the Tigers. How weird is that? That's almost like Chapman leaving and coming back to the Yankees, except the Tigers. And then Gavin Lux, who they traded to the Reds. So I'll just throw it out there. I don't want to make it a big discussion because I have an opinion that's very usually left of this. But do you guys hate this? Do you guys hate that they defer all this money and bring in all these people and are just stacking completely?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it, honestly. Like, I have a love-hate. I'm partially let the NL teams do whatever they want. I'll worry about them in the World Series if the Yankees get back there. But at the same time, I'm like, it's hard to see a team like the Dodgers spend so much money, and then you have teams at the bottom that could care less about spending money. And I think that's where, as you just sit back as a general MLB fan, it's kind of hard to not just see teams as not care, and then the team like the Dodgers kind of be hated on for almost caring too much. So it's just like, am I mad at them spending all the money? No. I'm more just kind of look at the opposite side where I'm like, Pirates spent some money, Miami spent some money. Like you can put 10, 12, 15 mil into a player that could maybe help you compete. But then there's the Dodgers that are like giving role player 12, 15.
Well, I don't even think it's the spending the money that gets to people. It's that they pay $30 million a year for Blake Snell.
Oh, the 20 is the
$2 million.
Yeah,
he makes $2 million a year until 2099 when he's dead. And it makes no sense.
No, because every time when the deferrals started coming up, right, all you hear was like, why are the players doing this? Like, it's bad for the players. So I'm like, if the players want to do it to go wherever they want to play and be comfortable to play, like, who am I to be mad at the Dodgers for doing it? Like, you got to look at the players as well that are like, I'll go ahead and defer all this money till later on. I'll take whatever I want to take now because of like whatever taxes or reason. I'll make all this money somewhere else. So it's like, if you're the Dodgers, like, hey, you just do what you got to do using the system that's in place. And if the other teams want to do it, the other teams can do it. So
I just think the reason people don't like, you could say other teams can do it and maybe the Yankees can or the Red Sox can, but like the Cincinnati Reds aren't deferring any money. You know, the Marlins are a whole other story, but the Colorado Rockies are not deferring any money. It's just not, it's not in what they could do. It's not in their realm. This is my thing. If it's legal, do it. Does it suck? Sure. I mean, their outfield is now Michael Conforto, Teoscar Hernandez, and their outfield is so stacked that Mookie Betts plays shortstop. Like, it makes no sense at all. They got rid of Corey Seager because they just moved Mookie Betts there. Like, yeah, we have so many outfielders. Why not? But that's whatever. If it's legal, you could do it. I'm big on, like, I get like no salary cap. It's hard to implement it now. Juan Soto makes over $760 million. You can't say, well, you're capped at this much. Good luck. Go trade half your team now. But there needs to be something stricter in there. I think a floor is big as well. Like, we need a floor and a high floor. If there's a high floor, you can't do this as much either, right? So, like, that's where I think it just needs to be a stricter top and bottom. Like I said, I think a salary cap in baseball would be great because I'd love to see more competitive balance in the entire thing. I'd like to see the Cincinnati Reds be better. Like, they get L.A. De La Cruz. He'll be gone in 3 years because they're not going to be able to afford him, and that kind of stinks. I'm glad that Bobby Witt is able to stay with Kansas City for 10 years. Like, usually they have to get rid of those guys. I mean, look at the World Series teams. They went to the World Series. They won the World Series. Then they got rid of everybody because they couldn't afford anybody anymore. So I think a lot of that comes from that, is like the Reds, even like teams like the Cardinals probably can't even do that, especially right now. They kind of spent all their money and now they're God knows doing what. But like the Royals, the Marlins, the Rockies, like these teams can't. I would say even Arizona Diamondbacks, like they're not going to be able to defer this money because they don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Where the Dodgers people can do that. They have the money and they have the ownership, and they're going to be there a long time. We already know it. They're the owner of the Dodgers. Like You're not leaving.
I mean, I feel the same way about it because what I think is, so obviously, if there was a salary cap in baseball, it would change everything. But the luxury tax ultimately acts as one for these big market teams because we've seen it at times.
But it doesn't seem to do anything.
Well, we've seen it at times with some big market teams saying, hey, we got to take a step back to try to get underneath this cap again so we can go ahead. But the thing to me is, if you're going to defer money, that's fine. But I think what the AAV should count against the luxury tax.
Yes,
and that should be what it is. Because if you're going to pay Ohtani, if you're giving him technically a $70 million a year contract, he should count as $70 million a year to the luxury tax. He's not actually making that, and that's fine. But it's to me, it's the AAV should be what it is, because that will ultimately level out the playing field and prevent, a team like the Dodgers from signing everybody they want. Now, again, the rules are anybody can do it, and I do think a floor would be huge, because obviously now all of a sudden maybe the Marlins are in on Juan Soto because all they want to do is give him $50 million a year, and then they've hit their floor and they're like, great.
That's why I think they take away a lot of this.
Exactly. If there really was that, maybe the floor is a place to start and then see what happens after that and see if that pulls teams in. Like all of a sudden now the Pirates are going to pay Paul Skeens because they trust him, they love him, and you know what? That gets them to the floor. Whatever it may be. Because I feel for these teams who aren't in big markets who, why even watch baseball? If you want to grow the game of baseball, which frankly is struggling overall in the grand scheme of the four major sports, how are you going to grow it if you have markets that just are brutal? Brutal. Why watch? At least all three of us can sit here and watch baseball this year and be excited the entire year. But how is an A's fan? I don't even know where they live. Maybe that's a bad example. How about
the Sacramento A's?
Yeah, but how can a Rockies fan get excited right now? How can a Marlins fan get excited right now? They just can't. There's nothing to be excited about.
I actually think the biggest victim of this as a good team, let's just say the good teams, I think it's the Milwaukee Brewers, where they can't seem to keep a core together because they can't. They don't defer money, but they also can't afford to do it. I think, start with the floor. I think the AAV should count as well. It just makes sense. And when we go it's the rule, so we got to live by it. The tush push is a rule as well, but I don't think people should be shoving the quarterback in the back. How are you supposed to so you know what I mean? Now you don't have to get rid of the tush push, but maybe you have to change the rules to you can't aid a guy into the end zone, which was a rule, by the way. It doesn't matter. Another thing I want to bring up really quick, Ha-Seong Kim, the star shortstop, the one that signed with that was with the Padres, signed with the Rays. That's not really what I want to talk about. This is completely has nothing to do with any of that. I just can't believe. Now, remember a couple years ago, I can't believe that the Rays had to sign a shortstop. They had 18 of them in their minor league system. Now, one of them we know, the 18 was a number why he's not there anymore. But the other ones, what happened to all their shortstops? Remember they were their top 25 prospects, 7 of them were shortstops for the Rays. Now they have to go sign shortstops. What the hell happened to the Rays? They were World Series bound. They were really good, and now they're just...
I mean, it was the Wander situation that tanked them. They do still have Carson Williams, though. He could be something. Maybe this year he could be something. Out.
Yeah, and they'll get back a lot of healthy pitching as well.
For sure.
Which is kind of the Rays' bread and butter. They'll just, for some reason, have 5 top-notch starters and a deep bullpen, and they'll just pitch you to sleep.
They're big home run hitters, too, but last year they were not. They did not have the pop.
They got that Caminero guy, too, who's hopefully breaks in this year, and he's got 30 homer potential, so they'll be better. And actually, I do think this, I know probably going to do it later, but I do think the AL East might have 5 teams that are over 500 this year, which would be insane.
It's very possible. And you know what? The Rays might be the last of those and still be over 500. A couple underrated signings that are going to have some big impact. Jock Peterson to Texas. I think they're going to have a bounce back year. Josh Naylor traded to Arizona. Josh Naylor was a thorn in the side of every team in the playoffs, and then they just ship him off to Arizona. That's another team pretty good. Can't seem to keep star players because they just can't afford to stay with them. Let's see if I say this right. Isaac Paredes. I don't know Paredes. Look at that. I said it right. Let's go. I shouldn't have said anything. I think he's going to have a huge year because he's a big-time pull hitter down in Houston where that pull is very short. That was a smart move. If you have to make the trade for Kyle Tucker is very strange, but like if you have to make the trade, that's a good guy to get. I want to know a couple of your guys' underrated signings that you may have.
You kind of mentioned it with the D-backs. Maybe it's not the most underrated signing in history of the world because the name is pretty big, but I thought Corbin Burns going to the D-backs, like people aren't talking about that as big of a deal as it is. And, 6 years, $210 million to go there. It's like the Diamondbacks weren't talked about as a contender for him. No one ever even talked about him maybe going there. And when he signed there, it was just a complete surprise, but he solidifies that team. They didn't have to make a ton of moves. Like you mentioned, they picked up Johnson Naylor. They were already a good team. He solidifies the rotation. Now you have him and Gallen at the top as a real strong 1-2. And, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody competes with the Dodgers this year, but they'll be the top wild card team for sure, as long as everybody stays healthy. But I think he made them a legitimate, true contending baseball team. And, not many people are talking about the way they should.
Yeah, I think the pitching market kind of movement was very interesting. Walker Buehler to the Red Sox, very interesting. I think the first base market as a whole were there's that flurry of moves that somehow ended up Pete Alonso back with the Mets on essentially a 1-year deal. Gleyber Torres to the Tigers as a Yankees fan, like seeing how he finished the year, how he played in the playoffs. Like now he's in Detroit, you would hope it was kind of this. Now that he's gone, we won't hear from him again, but always something around him.
But I think signed if he knew the beard policy was coming back.
I think Gleyber on a 1 year to Detroit is interesting, and I think if you look at even the trades made, again, Kyle Tucker to the Cubs, the Red Sox situation is super fascinating.
So strange
between their pitchers and now Bregman over there. I'm interested to see how the Red Sox are this year. Again, as a Yankees fan, but also as a baseball fan. Now that they kind of made a bunch of moves to really solidify their team, they're going to be super interesting, fun to watch.
Yeah. So let's stick there for a second because they made a lot of interesting moves. Now it all starts with trading Mookie Betts, right? And ownership's trying to go in a different direction, whatever. And now it seems like they're just trying to piece together a team every single year. They lose Tyler O'Neill, who was their best home run hitter last year. Like you said, they picked up Bregman. They're trying to get rid of his name escapes me, the Japanese player they picked up.
Yoshida.
Yes, they've been trying to get rid of him for 2 years now. Sure. But he's actually pretty solid. Yeah. Like he's a good hitter. It makes no sense.
I mean, he's just a good hitter though. I think that's the issue. He's just a DH who hits.
He's their DH.
Yeah. Yes. So which they know about just having a strict DH. That's pretty good. They pick up 2 really good starting pitchers. Well, I guess Buehler can be in between, right? Because we don't know how good he's going to be coming off the injury. They go and they get Bregman, who is a solid defensive third baseman. Devers will not move. He said no. He literally said, "No, I am a third baseman," which is wild. Crazy. Back-to-back days, Stroman, I'm a starter. Then the next day, Devers, I'm a third baseman, which is hilarious. So now he's going to move to second, which kind of clogs up some of their prospects that they have that could play in them. Because they have the best farm system probably ranked out of anybody, I'd imagine. They have a very good farm system coming in. It's just, what do we make of this team? Like, are they going to be good? Are they going to be a mess? I think they're going to be pretty average, to be honest with you. But what do we got? What do we got going on, Dave?
Well, I think they'll be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say. I think
stealing his thunder.
No, I think
stealing his thunder.
I think best case scenario, if everybody stays healthy, which I think is really going to be their big issue. If everybody stays healthy, the best case scenario is they can really make a run for the division, which I think is still the Yankees' division at the end of the day. But, they can make a run if they stay healthy. Wild card is more legitimate this year for them. But there are big question marks there. I mean, Yoshida, part of the reason why they want to get rid of him is he gets hurt a lot. We already know Trevor Story gets hurt all the time. Their pitching is going to have question marks. Garrett Crochet is unreal when healthy. Buehler, unreal when healthy. So there is a ton of questions about that. Even the bullpen. I mean, Liam Hendricks is coming back from, everything that he dealt with. So they got Chapman now as their closer. He's 37. So on paper, they look really good, and they do have a great minor league system. So those guys could plug and play throughout the year, from Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, Christian Campbell. They do have the ability to be good. It's just the question is do they stay healthy? Can they live up to their potential, or are they really 1 year away from being great when those young guys really get the chance to play every day.
Yeah, I think the health part is the thing for them because they do have. I mean, I think you could even similar to the Yankees, right? It was like if healthy, but we all know that anything could happen during the year. We see spring training, people dropping like flies.
You guys already got 2 missing elbows.
Yes. So it's like you never know. But if they stay healthy, I think they'll be the second best team in the division. I think they'll fly past the Orioles, who I think I've taken a step back after not really doing much and losing some key players. But I think if healthy, I think the Red Sox are super scary just because Devers is a beast. I think Casas hasn't even reached his full potential yet. I think he's scary at first base. And I think their pitching rotation is solid. So I think, again, if healthy, which I think we could preface a lot of teams in baseball with
basically every team, did they stay healthy through 162 games, which
except
is
for
not
the
easy.
Dodgers pitching rotation. I guess they could lose
everybody just was out.
That's the one team.
Pitcher left.
The Dodgers are truly the one team where I don't think injuries would impact them because they're so deep that it doesn't matter. Because you
throw money at the problem.
Because not only did they sign a ton of guys, right, but like you said, they just got back like half their rotation from injuries. So they're only getting better, and they got the other half of Ohtani back. Like it's just, it's almost.
I'm interested to see Ohtani on the mound and how long that actually lasts. I don't think in this day and age you could do both. I just don't. I think Dave. I think the last time we did one of these baseball podcasts, I said the same thing. I just don't think you can do both at a high level. And we saw what he could do last year when he focuses on one thing. So and if he has just an average season, which an average season, if he does both, is going to be an MVP season, by the way. But if he does both at average pace, do they say like, okay, you need to go really heavy one way or really heavy the other way? But focusing on both just isn't going to do. But the Red Sox added Crockett, right? Crockett from the White Sox, Bregman, Buehler, Patrick Sandoval. That's pretty sneaky lefty pickup. Like you said, they got Chapman and Wilson to fill out their bullpen with Ottavino, but Ottavino has not been solid.
He's on a
minor league deal. Matt Moore. Matt Moore on a minor league deal as well to try to fill out because their bullpen has always been the big thing for the Red Sox. And the funny one to me is that Danny Jansen, they just let walk after the whole thing. They traded for him. Then he played in the same game. And then they just let him walk.
And he's still a free agent, right?
No, he is with the Rays now. He's with the Rays. Right. They've lost O'Neill, Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin, Nick Pivetta, which I think is a bigger loss than people will realize because he was probably one of their best pitchers, if not their best pitcher. So that's the Red Sox for you, and that is the Dodgers. We already talked about the Dodgers twice. A very sneaky signing, and you guys may not agree because they already have a good pitching staff. Cleveland picked up John Means, and he was hurt all last year, but he was one of the better pitchers on Baltimore for a couple of years. I just think they're just trying to figure out whatever they can to try to, take out the Yankees because it'll probably be somewhere around them again. Well, I think we're going to have to do a part 2 so we can go over the division winners. We can go over the AL and NL MVPs, dark horse candidates, different predictions like that. But any last thoughts you guys have before we wrap this baby up?
I guess just to wrap up some of the stuff we were talking about so far, I do think the Dodgers will be offseason winner for sure. We touched upon them. I do think the biggest loser you mentioned at one point was the Cardinals. I think that they took a step back. I think they took a step back to ultimately take a step forward, but they took a big step back this year. Other than that, I think we touched upon a lot of the key things. And another team I thought that got worse, I know we were looking at that, I think the Padres got significantly worse. And they're trying to get even worse, which I think is wild too. But it should be pretty interesting.
Just to preview, we're going to talk about big names on the trade market in part 2. And I think there's one infielder on the Padres that a lot of people are going to be looking at.
I think there are a few Padres that I think a lot.
I think there's a few Padres, but there's a very big name infielder that I think is going to be on the move at some point.
The team is such an enigma to me. I don't understand. Every other year they buy everybody they possibly can, and the next year they sell off
under new ownership now.
I was going to say, when that happened, it's because the owner was literally on his deathbed, like, I want to win. So he would just do anything to win, and then he died, and now they're like, well, damn, we got to get rid of everybody. Like, we can't.
Yeah, for the Padres, they once he died, like I think his two kids were like fighting over who's gonna have. That's why they didn't do anything in the offseason, because they didn't have an owner to kind of take hold on what was happening. So they literally did nothing.
That's too bad.
And now I think they're gonna do. Because I think for a long time they saw what San Diego was doing. They're like, I don't think this is sustainable. And now you reach this point, and the ownership's gonna be like, yeah, it's not. Either gonna move on.
You're right. You're right. It's not sustainable.
I think the Padres, I think they're to continue to take a step back. So we'll see.
I also just quickly add, I think one of the biggest losers of the offseason were the Baltimore Orioles as well, who we got a quick mention of the Baltimore Orioles, but they just did not seem to get a lot better. They lost Santander, they lost Corbin Burns, they traded for Eloy Jimenez and then didn't play him at all and then just let him walk. Like I said, John Means is now gone, and they didn't really – Tyler O'Neill is there. They added Gary Sanchez to try to fill in. But there wasn't really any Dylan Carlson to fill in that spot. Like, so they're gonna have O'Neill and Carlson try to fill in that Santander 44 home runs. Like, they just kind of went in a weird direction. And I don't think they got any better, and I do think they got significantly worse as a team, especially losing Corbin Burns as well, which I didn't even think I mentioned. That was just such a huge blow for them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they definitely took a step back. They have the young players to potentially make up for what they lost. But it's just going to bring them back to where they were. I don't think they got any better.
Yeah, and you were looking at the Orioles, 2 years ago, and they're like, oh, man, just another year or two, and you're going to be top of the AL, like, battling for World Series. And now here we are 2-3 years later, and we're like, are they just kind of the same team that they have been? But yeah, I think if you talk about losers, I know the Cardinals, I think we all agree the Cardinals are, like, number one on the losers list. I think the Pirates are right there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're super young. Especially when you look at
but they didn't do anything to. They have Skeens and did nothing.
When you have that good of a starting rotation, just add a couple bats, a couple of okay bats,
right.
like.
And it's not like the NL Central is a tough division.
Yeah,
they could have added a couple guys.
Hitters. Yeah, add a couple professional hitters to see what happens. But
they don't ever do that.
Nope,
they don't ever do that. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining on this first part. If you are listening, of course, get ready because we're going to have a part 2 coming at some point soon before the beginning of the season, so you could get the rest of everything else and, hear our thoughts on that. Thank you guys for joining. I want to thank Dave and Jhon for being here. I want to thank myself for producing this episode. Hannah is out today. I want to thank you all for listening. Remember, subscribe to the Schnabel Studios page, to the YouTube page, or go to the website to make sure you stay in touch with everything Schnabel Studios. You can also go to Mad Props Pod on YouTube to get the Mad Props podcast itself. So if you just want to listen to this podcast, you don't want anything else we do, including Aaron Judge mic'd up, Dak Prescott mic'd up, or any of the films we've done, Offstage, DJ Goulet, nothing you don't want any of that, you don't have any interest, just go to the Mad Props pod on YouTube and get your stuff there. Make sure you check out Stadium Rant to check out some of Jhon's articles. Make sure you watch Dave on the news. He's reporting in Boston if you live there. If not, you can go find him online. Dave Puglisi. You can follow me as well. I don't have anything interesting I do, but I'm at Chris Schnabel, or I'd rather you follow at Mad Props Pod or at Schnabel Studios on Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. And again, please subscribe. Please leave 5 stars, all that stuff. Comment below your opinions. We really appreciate everybody that interacts with us. We had a big Tab Murphy. A couple of these videos we put out of him have gotten a lot of love, and I try to respond to all of them. I meant to say this in the beginning. I did say it the first time I recorded at the beginning. This is the second or third, I can't remember the time I've recorded at the beginning. This is not the end, obviously. I've had with the Tab Murphy video did really well, and we had a lot of love on it, and Tab got a lot of love on it. I tried to reply to as many people as I possibly can. One of them has over like 700 comments, so it's tough to get back to 700 people. But I just want everybody to know, if you're coming back and listening again, we appreciate all of you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening again. Please subscribe to the podcast. This has been Mad Props, and we will see you next time. See you later.